in the Tableau. So in Tableau, total I have two types of connections. So the two types of connections are number one, the live connection, and next number two, the extract connection. So what live connection will do is the live connection just will create the communication path between the Tableau and the data source. So what extract connection will do, the extract connection just it creates the local data copy with the help of the Tableau data engine. So all these things we have seen in the previous session. So in my today's session, I'm going to discuss about some basics of the data warehouse. Some basics of the data warehouse. Because if we connect to any data source, let's say I'm connecting to one sample source. I'm connecting to one sample source. If you connect to any data source, so here how Tableau is placing the fields. Here Tableau is segregating the data fields in the form of dimensions and the measures. So why Tableau is placing, why Tableau is segregating the fields in the form of dimensions and measures, that we should know. So let me discuss in detail about the dimensions and the measures. So if you want to know what exactly the dimensions and the measures means, first we should know how the information will get stored in the data warehouse. In the data warehouse, in any data warehouse, in the enterprise warehouse or in the relation warehouse, in any data warehouse, of any flavor like Oracle or SQL or of any flavor, the information will get stored in the form of two tables. In any data warehouse, the information will be stored in the form of two tables. Number one, master table, and next number two, transaction table. So what is master table? Master table is nothing but it stores the information about the business. So if we take any business, the business information, or key information, it will be stored in the master table. So what exactly it means? Let's say for example, some supermarket business. So how the supermarket will do the business? By offering multiple products. So without the products, they cannot do their business. So the products will act as the master table for the supermarket. And let's say for example, university. So how the university will do their business? By offering multiple courses. So the courses will act as a master table for the university, and even the students also. Without the students, they cannot do their business. And let's say we take hospital. The hospital will do their business by offering multiple treatments or multiple offerings. So the treatments or the different types of categories will come under the master of the hospital. So in simple, what is a master table? Means the master table, it provides the complete business information. Next, what about the transaction table? The transaction table, it stores the metrics information. The transaction table, it stores the metrics information. So what are metrics? Metrics are nothing but the measuring points of the business. Metrics are, they are nothing but the measuring points of the business. So as the master table is storing the business information, if we want to measure the performance of the business, then we have to make use of these metrics. Let's say for example, I'm having 4 products. In supermarket, I'm having 4 products. The products are, let's say, A, B, C, and D. A, B, C, and D. So now here I would like to compare the performance of all these 4 products. Here I would like to compare the performance of all these 4 products. So how to compare the performance of these 4 products? So to compare the performance of these 4 products, we need some metrics. So metrics are nothing but the numbers. Metrics are nothing but the numbers, are integers which are used to analyze the business. So here we have to make use of some numbers like sales or profits, and with the help of these numbers, then we can able to compare the business. So without the metrics, okay, without the metrics, we cannot perform any analysis. Okay, without the metrics, we cannot perform any analysis. So what is a metric means? The main purpose of the metrics is to analyze the business. So metrics are nothing but the measuring points of the business. Okay. Next, what the relationship between master and transaction is? Master always act as the parent and the transaction always act as the child. Okay, master always act as the parent and transaction always act as the child. So how to define the parent-child relationship? So how to define the parent-child relationship means, okay, in the data warehouse or in the database, the parent-child relationship can be established with the help of the primary keys and with the help of the foreign keys. With the help of the primary key and the foreign key, will establish the parent and the child relationship. So here the key thing is, without the parent the child cannot exist. So here without the master, the transaction cannot exist. Okay, here without the master, the transaction cannot exist. Let's say for example here we're having the product and sales, right? So what is product? The product is master and sales is transaction. So without the product, can the sale exist? Obviously no. Okay, without the product, the sale cannot exist. Similarly, let's say you want to compare the performance of some students. Okay, you have 10 students, you want to perform the, okay, you want to analyze the performance of all the 10 students. So how to compare the performance of all the 10 students? So again, with the help of some numbers like marks. Okay, with the help of the marks, we can able to compare the performance of the students. So in simple, the master table contains the information about the business and the transaction table contains the metrics information. So metrics are nothing but the measuring points of the business. So in simple, metrics contain the numbers which are used to analyze the business. So the relationship between master and transaction is, master always act as the parent and transaction always act as the child. So how to define the parent-child relationship means with the help of the primary keys and the foreign keys. Next, what is the difference between master and transaction? What is the difference between master and transaction? The chance of using master as a dimension is, the chance of using master as a dimension is dimension and measure. Measure is also known as fact. The synonym for the measure is fact. Okay, the chance of using master as a dimension is 99%. In 99% cases, we will use master as a dimension, and in 1% case, we will use master as a measure or fact. So in other words, master is nothing but a dimension. Okay, in other words, master is nothing but a dimension. Next, the chance of using transaction as a dimension is only 1%. So dimension, measure. Okay, the chance of using transaction as a dimension is, okay, transaction as a dimension is only 1%, and the chance of using transaction as a measure is 99%. So it means, in other words, okay, transaction is nothing but a measure. So master is nothing but a dimension. Master is nothing but a dimension, and transaction is nothing but a measure. Okay. So then, what exactly a dimension means? Okay. So how can we define the dimension? So basically, what exactly this dimension will do means, this dimension, it defines in which way we want to analyze the business. The dimension, it defines in which way or in which angle we want to analyze the business or in which way we want to see the business. Let's say, for example, I'm having I'm having products department, sales and profits. So A department is D1, sale is 100, profit is 10. Next B, just I'm taking some random data. Okay, D2 220. Let's say I'm having it's 2 records of data. If you have the data like this, so here how many dimensions we are having, or here how many masters we are having? Here we are having 2 masters. What are they? Products and the department, both are masters. Because the product contains some business information and the department also contains what? Some business information. What about sales and profits? Sales and profits are giving us what? Some numbers which are used to analyze the business. So if you see here we can able to analyze the business based on the product. Here we can able to see the the product wise sales. It means we can able to analyze based on the product, and also we can able to analyze the sales based on the department. Here we can able to analyze the sales based on the product, and also we can able to analyze the sales based on the department. Similarly, here we can able to see the product wise total profits, and also the department wise and also the department wise total profits. So here the total profits can be analyzed based on the product and also based on the department. So it means what? It means the sales and profits can be analyzed in the way of products and even in the way of department. So in simple, what exactly the dimension will do? Mean the dimension, it defines in which way we want to see the business. Here the business can be analyzed in the products way or even in the department way. Or the dimension, or the dimension it defines in which way we want to see our data. Next, what about the measure? So the measure indicates based on which numbers we want to analyze the business. The measure defines based on which numbers you want to analyze the business. Whether you want to analyze the business, whether you want to analyze the business based on the sales or based on the profits. Let's say here for example, you have the sales and profits. So here the product can be analyzed using the sales numbers or even the profit numbers. So what exactly the measure will define is, the measure defines based on which values or which numbers we want to analyze the business. So one key thing is, if you want to perform any analysis in the real life, that analysis is the part of both the dimension and the measure. If you want to perform any analysis in our real life, not only in BI or not only in Tableau, in our real life, if you want to perform any analysis, that analysis is the combination of both the dimension and the measure. It is the beauty of the data warehouse. Let's say for example, you want to compare the heights of two persons. So here what we have to compare is the heights of two persons. So here we are stressing two words. One is height and next is person. So height is a number, height is a metric, and without the person the height cannot exist. So if you want to compare the height of a person, we need both the height and the person. Only with the person, we have only the person. Let's say you have two persons, P1 and P2. So only with the person we cannot analyze anything. So to compare these two persons, we need some numbers. To compare these two persons, we need some numbers. So with these numbers only we can able to analyze the business. And similarly, only with the numbers we cannot do anything. Only with these numbers like 6 and 5.9 we cannot do anything, because this 6 belongs to which master. So if you want to perform any analysis, that analysis is the combination of both the dimension and the measure. So in the data warehouse, again, these dimensions are divided into some different types. In the data warehouse, the dimensions are divided into total 9 different types. So the 9 different types of dimensions are, number 1, SCD. So what is SCD? SCD stands for slowly changing dimension. Okay, SCD stands for slowly changing dimension. So what this slowly changing dimension will do? If the data in the dimension is changing, okay, over the period of time, if the data in the dimension is changing over the period of time, then such a kind of dimension is known as slowly changing dimension. So let me explain with an example. Let's say, for example, employee. If you take employee, the employee information will change over the period of time. So it means one employee will work in one organization for X number of years, and after that, if you want to move out, okay, you may go to some other organization. Only after some point of time, every day he cannot change the company, right? So it means what the employee information will maintain in one organization for some period of time. So if the information is changing over the period of time, then such a kind of dimension is known as slowly changing dimension. So the best example is employee, and even the student also. If you take student, the student will do his schooling in one organization, and plus 2 in one organization, and graduation and post-graduation in some other organization. So during the period of that schooling, the information will be maintained in the school, similarly in that university. Okay, so if the information is or if the data is changing over the period of time, then such a kind of dimension is known as what? Slowly changing dimension. So here we're talking about the data or information in the SCD, in the SCD dimension. So what type of data the dimension contains? So the dimension or master, the dimension or master, they always contains textual data. Dimension or masters always contain textual or alphanumeric data, and plus along with the textual data they will store the primary keys. To define the relationship with the measure, the dimension always contains what? Textual data plus primary keys. It is a property of the dimension. Next, what about measure then? Measure always contains numbers, numeric data plus foreign keys. Measure always contains numeric data plus foreign keys. So let's move on to the next type of dimension. The second type of dimension is RCD. Rapidly changing dimension. So what is RCD? If the data in the dimension is changing frequently, let's say each and every minute, then such a kind of dimension is known as rapidly changing dimension. Then such a kind of dimension is known as rapidly changing dimension. So what is the best example? The best example is age. If you take age, each and every second, 1 second will add to our age. And if you take let's say minute, each and every minute, 1 minute will add to our age, and each and every hour, 1 hour will add to our age. So age is the best example because age will change each and every second, each and every minute and the hour. So age is the best example for the rapidly changing dimension. So here you may get one doubt. So as age being the number, why can't be a measure? The answer is no, it cannot be a measure because the age can be calculated based on what? Based on the dates. So always the dates comes under dimensions. Always the dates comes under the dimensions. So the third type of dimension is UCD or static dimension. UCD or static dimension. So what is UCD? UCD stands for unchanged dimension. UCD stands for unchanged dimension. So if the data in the dimension is constant, and if it is not changing at any time, then such a kind of dimension is known as unchanged dimension. So what are the examples? The examples are gender is the best example because gender cannot change, and the date of birth is the best example which it cannot change, and even the traffic signals. The traffic signals are also the best examples for the UCD. Next, The fourth type of dimension is the most important dimension. The fourth type of dimension is conformal dimension. The fourth type of dimension is conformal dimension. So what is conformal dimension? If one dimension is commonly shared between the multiple business segments. Okay, if one dimension is commonly shared between the multiple business segments, then such a kind of dimension is known as conformal dimension. So let me explain with an example. Let's say, for example, I am taking one organization XYZ. Okay, this organization is having 4 business areas. Okay, the 4 business areas are IT, sales, okay, finance and HR. Okay, this organization is having 4 different business areas. They are IT, sales, finance and HR. Okay, finance and HR. So even though so here IT is one business segment or one business area, sales is one business segment, finance is one business segment, and similarly HR is also one business segment. So here the nature of work of each and every business segment is different. Even though as their nature of work is different, okay, they usually start their work at the morning 9 a.m. Okay, usually they'll start their work at the morning 9 a.m. and they will end their work, just a minute. Okay, so usually they'll start their work in the morning 9 a.m. and they will end their work at 7 p.m. So they commonly share one thing known as time. Okay, they work at the same time. Okay, so these different business segments, they are sharing one common thing known as time. So time is the best example for the conformal dimension. So here this time is commonly shared between the multiple business segments. So if one dimension is commonly shared by the multiple business segments, then such a kind of dimension is known as the conformal dimension. So the next type of dimension is role-playing dimension. The next type of dimension is role-playing dimension. So what is role-playing dimension? If one dimension is playing multiple roles with a fact or measure, then such a kind of dimension is known as role-playing dimension. So again, let me explain with an example. Let's say, for example, let's take an e-commerce site. Let's take Amazon. If you take Amazon, okay, let's say in the Amazon you have ordered one product. Okay, here I'm stressing two things. One is the product and the other is what? Order. So what is product? The product is the dimension, and what is order? Order is the measure, because without the product the order cannot exist. Okay, order being the number, like we can order like 2 products or 3 products or 4 products. So basically order contains what? The count. Okay, if you order any product in any e-commerce site, so what the order contains? That order contains date of order, and that order contains date of order, and that order contains date of invoice, and that order contains date of shipment, and even that order contains date of delivery. So that single order is playing multiple roles like date of date of order, date of invoice, date of shipment, and date of delivery. Okay. So with a single measure called as order, with this single measure called as order, here this date dimension is playing multiple roles. Okay, here this date dimension is playing multiple roles like date of order, date of invoice, okay, date of shipment for what? Date of shipment for the order. So if one dimension is playing multiple roles with the measure or fact, then such a kind of dimension is known as role playing dimension. Okay. Next, the sixth type of dimension is shrunken dimension. The sixth type of dimension is shrunken dimension. Okay, the sixth type of dimension is shrunken dimension. So what is shrunken dimension? The subset of one dimension. Okay, the subset of one dimension is known as the shrunken dimension. Let's say, for example, if you take year. For year, if you take year, for year, okay, quarter is the subpart, right? So the subpart or the subset of one dimension is known as the subpart or the subset of one dimension is known as the shrunken dimension. So if we take year and quarter, quarter is the subpart of year, so quarter will become the shrunken dimension of the year, and month will become the shrunken dimension of quarter, and week will become the shrunken dimension of month. And similarly, if we take country and state, so the state will become what? The shrunken dimension of country. So the subset or the subpart of one dimension is known as the shrunken dimension. Next, the seventh type of dimension is known as degenerated dimension. Degenerated dimension. So what is degenerated dimension? Okay, what is degenerated dimension? So basically, what is dimension? The dimension is a combination of primary keys plus textual data, right? So the dimension contains only primary keys. The dimension contains only primary keys without any textual data. Okay, without any textual data. The dimension contains only the primary keys without any textual data. Then such a kind of dimension is known as, okay, then such a kind of dimension is known as degenerated dimension. Okay, then such a kind of dimension is known as the degenerated dimension. So let's say, for example, we take the product dimension. So what the product contains. To take the product dimension, what the product contains, the product ID, okay, the product ID and the product name. So the product ID always should be the primary key. Let's say, for example, I'm having information like 1 and I don't have any, I don't have any product name, and 2. I'm having the information like 1, 2, 3 without any name. So here the names are empty. So the dimension contains only the primary keys without any textual data, then such a kind of dimension is known as the degenerated dimension. Okay. Next, the eighth type of dimension is known as inferred dimension. Okay, the eighth type of dimension is known as inferred dimension. So what are inferred dimensions? The empty dimensions. So what this degenerated dimension is doing, it is storing only the it is containing only the primary keys, right? Then what about the inferred dimension? The dimension is not having any textual data and even without any primary keys, then such a kind of dimensions are known as inferred dimensions. Okay, basically the empty dimensions are known as the inferred dimensions. And the last type of dimension is sunk dimension. Okay, the ninth type of dimension is sunk dimension. Okay, so what is a sunk dimension? So basically the sunk means unwanted or unrelated. If the dimension is storing the unwanted attributes or unwanted information, okay, then such a kind of dimension is known as the Zung dimension. Okay, so in the data warehouse, what we will do is if you have some unwanted information, just we'll create one table known as the Zung dimension table, and we'll dump we'll dump all the unwanted information into that Zung dimension table. Okay, guys. So it's all about the different types of dimensions. So the different types of dimensions are, let me recap again. The first type of dimension is known as SCD. So SCD stands for slowly changing dimension. So if the data in the dimension is changing over the period of time, then such a kind of dimension is known as SCD. Next, number 2, RCD. If the data in the dimension is changing rapidly, let's say each and every minute, then such a kind of dimension is known as rapidly changing dimension. So the best example is age. And next, number 3, UCD. So UCD stands for unchanged dimension. So if the data in the dimension is constant and if it is not changing at any time, then such a kind of dimension is known as unchanged dimension. And next, number 4, conformal dimension. So if the data in the dimension, if one dimension is commonly shared between multiple business segments, then such a kind of dimension is known as conformal dimension. The best example is time. And next, number 5, role-playing dimension. So if one dimension is playing multiple roles with the measure of fact, then such a kind of dimension is known as role-playing. And next, number 6, shrunken dimension. So what is shrunken dimension means? The subset or the sub-part of one dimension is known as the shrunken dimension. And next, number 7, degenerated dimension. So if the dimension contains only the primary keys without any textual data, then such a kind of dimension is known as degenerated dimension. And next, number 8, inferred dimensions. The empty dimensions are also known as the inferred dimensions. And next, number 9, the Zung dimensions. Okay, the dimension contains unwanted or the unrelated information, then such a kind of dimension is known as the Zung dimension. So here why I am discussing all these things means, okay, it is very important to identify the dimensions we are having in our data source. So if we connect to any data source, Tableau will segregate the fields in the form of dimensions and the measures, right? So it is always very important, okay, to identify the dimensions we are having in our data source. So now I will connect to one data source in a superstore, okay? So if we install the Tableau desktop, and if you open the Tableau desktop, okay, if you open the Tableau desktop, so in the start page here we can able to see one data source on a superstore. So the superstore, it is located in the Tableau repository. So if we install the Tableau desktop, it is going to create one folder known as the Tableau repository. Okay. If you go to the Tableau repository, in the Tableau repository, the complete information will be stored in the form of folders. So in the Tableau repository, here we are having one folder known as data sources. If we go to the data sources, here we can able to see, okay, here we can able to see the default data sources. So by default, Tableau going to offer some default data sources. They are known as Superstore, Extract, Coffee Chain, and World Bank indicators. These 4 data sources are commonly offered by the Tableau. So I am connecting to the Superstore English. So basically it is located in the data source folder of the Tableau repository, and here we are having the saved connection. Just here we are having the saved connection. Okay. So by default, if we install the Tableau desktop, you will get this connection. Okay. Just click on this. Just click on the Superstore. Now see here. Now here Tableau, it got connected to the Superstore. Okay. Tableau, it got connected to that Superstore data source. Okay. So after connecting to the Superstore data source, here Tableau is placing some fields under dimensions and some fields under the measures. So here which fields it is placing under the dimensions means all the textual fields. So under the dimensions here we can able to identify the different data types. So how we can able to identify the data types here? So here we are seeing one field known as continent. Okay, this continent is prefixing with ABC. ABC means it is having the textual data. Okay, ABC means it is having the textual data, and here the order date is prefixing with the calendar. It means it is of type date. Okay, it is of type date. Okay, so the dimension always contains the different data types, like number 1 ABC, which indicates the textual data, and next number 2 calendar, which indicates the date data type, and also number 3 calendar plus clock. Okay, here we can able to see some fields like calendar plus clock, which indicates date plus time fields. Okay, if you see any field with the calendar plus clock, then that field going to store the date information as well as the time information. So it is the third type of the field, so known as the date plus time fields or the timestamp fields. And the fourth type of fields are known as geographic fields. Okay, the fourth type of fields are known as the geographic fields. So if you see any field prefixing with the globe, then those fields are known as the geographic fields. So these are the 4 different data types. Okay, these are the 4 different data types used to get under the dimensions. So the dimension always contains what type of data is? Dimension always contains textual data plus primary keys. Now let's try to identify the different types of dimensions we are having here. Here we are seeing one dimension known as continent. So continent is what type of dimension? We have seen total 9 different types, right? So continent comes under which type? So if you want to see the data of the continent, so where we can able to place all these data fields means all these data fields you have to place into either columns or into either rows. So I am placing the continent into my rows, and here we are seeing the continent values. So here we are seeing total 6 continents. So always the continent is static. We cannot change the continent. Okay, the area or the region of the continent is static. We cannot change. So continent comes under static dimension or UCD dimension. Okay, unchanged dimension. And the next type of dimension is customer name. So customer name is what type of dimension? Okay, guys, if you see the customer comes under what type? So the customer comes under SCD. Okay, because let's say we want to buy any mobile, this time we may go for Apple and next time we may go for Samsung. So the customer information is not static. Okay, based on the customer interest, okay, the customer may go for multiple brands or the multiple gadgets. So the customer information will change over the period of time. So the customer comes under SCD. Next, what about customer segment? Okay, what about customer segment? So let me drag the customer segment and drop it into rows. If I drag the customer segment and if I drop it into rows, here we can able to see the values of the customer segment. In the customer segment here we are seeing the values like consumer, corporate, home office and small business. So these are the different segments we are having. So how this segment can be defined means depending on the financial capability of the customer. Depending on the financial capability of the customer, all these segments will be defined. So this customer segment also comes under SCD. So why SCD? Because the financial capability of the customer, it won't change overnight. This year the customer may in the consumer segment, and if his financial capability increases, then the next year he may jump to corporate. Okay, depending on the financial capability, the customer segment will be defined, and more importantly, the financial capabilities, it won't change overnight. So customer segments comes under the SCD. Next, here you're seeing some fields like country, state, city, and the postal code. So country is what type of dimension? Country is what type of dimension? So country always static, it won't change. So country comes under UCD, And also country is the shrunken dimension of continent. Okay, country is the shrunken dimension of what? Continent, because one continent will have n number of countries. And similarly, if you take state is the shrunken dimension of country, and state also comes under what? Unchanged dimension. Similarly, city is a shrunken dimension of state, and city, the city it won't change, so city comes under what? Static dimension. Similarly, the postal code. So always the postal code is constant, it won't change. So it comes under the unchanged dimension, and also the static, and also the shrunken dimension of city. Next, region. What about the region? Okay, the region always comes under unchanged dimension. Okay. So next, order date. What about order date? So this order date, it comes under the role playing dimension. Okay. So here you see here, this date is playing the two roles. One is order date, and the other is what? Other is the ship date. So always the date comes under what? The role playing dimension. And next here we are seeing something called as order priority. So we want to see the values of the order priority. Just drag the order priority and drop it here. So here we are having the different order priorities like critical, high, low, medium, and not specified. So depending on our requirement, we will order the things. So the order priority will change, okay, depending on the things. So order priority comes under what? SC. Next, ship mode. Okay, similarly the ship mode also will change depending on our requirement. If we drag the ship mode, we can able to see the different ship modes like delivery truck, express, air, and the regular air. So it also will change depending on our requirement. So the ship mode comes under, okay, SC. So next, the next thing is, okay, the product category. So what about the product category? So before discussing the product category, here we are having something called as the department. So let me drag the department and drop it here. So here, what about the department? Okay, in the department we are seeing furniture, office supplies, and technology. So this department is what type of dimension? So this department is an unchanged dimension. Let's say for example, okay, if you take any chair or if you take any table, always the chairs and tables, they comes under what? Furniture only. Over the period of time also, okay, the chairs and the tables, they won't comes under technology. Always they comes under furniture. So the categories, they won't change. They come under the same department. Okay, similarly, if you take laptops, always the laptops comes under the technology department. Okay, so the department comes under what? Unchanged dimension. So next here we are having, okay, one more dimension called as category. So what is category? So this category is the shrunken dimension of the department. This category is the shrunken dimension of the department. And next, item. So what about item? Item is the shrunken dimension of, okay, item is the shrunken dimension of category and the department. Okay, so department comes under unchanged, and category is the shrunken dimension of department, and item is the shrunken dimension of both the category and the department. And the next type of dimension is container. What about container? So in the container here we are seeing the jumbo box, jumbo drum, okay, small pack and bag. So depending on the requirement, we'll choose the container. So the container comes under SCD. Okay, the container comes under SCDs. Okay. So in this way, we have to identify the different types of dimensions we are having in our data source. So here one shortcut is in BI, in 98% cases. Okay, in 98% cases we always comes up. Okay, in 98% cases, always we used to get SCDs, UCDs, okay, shrunken, role playing. In 98% cases, we come across these dimensions: SCDs, UCDs, shrunken dimension, okay, role playing, and sometimes conformed also. Sometimes conformed also. So we frequently come across these 5 different types of dimensions. Okay, so it's all about the dimension types. So any questions in the dimension type space, and on the basis of the on the basis of the data warehouse, any questions?
I have a doubt.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. So the container comes slowly changing, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like containers include a big box, a small box, small box. So
yeah.
if you select one thing, it will do one thing. So why it will not come under constant, unchanged dimension?
No, the thing is, if you take the container, basically, what's the purpose of the container? The container is to carry something, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you have ordered some product and you want to carry that product. So every time you won't go with the the large box or the medium box, depending on the the dimensions of the particular item, you will choose the container.
Okay. So what about the category? So we have furniture and shelf books, I mean, office needs and all. So that
Yeah.
also depends on the needs, we're going to change it, right?
No, let's say for example, in the furniture you have some categories like tables, okay, bookcases, something. So always this tables comes under what? Under the furniture only.
Okay.
So it is a part of furniture. So category comes under what? Shrunken dimension.
Okay. That's what my doubt.
Alright.
This part.
Hey, this is Madhav here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, Madhav, yeah.
Yeah. My question is, how are we going to use these in the real time when we are working? Is it because Tableau is going to identify and put them as dimensions and measures, right?
Yeah.
In that, why do we need to differentiate so much? If we just know the functionality of those, is it not sufficient? We need to this is theory, this is helpful for the theoretical part, or do we need it in the projects?
Not really. Like, if you are working in some complex projects, the data will change, right? So every day you're going to get some new data. So let's say, for example, if you take the UCD dimension, the data it won't change. So if you're doing some automation in Tableau, let's say you are performing some scheduling in the Tableau, okay, and you want to see the data modifications. So at that time, if you want to do it manually, it will take a lot of time, right? Whereas if you identify the dimensions which are changing and if you see the data related to it, so that we can able to, save a lot of our time. It is the first use case. And the second use case is while performing the data modeling. So in real time, always it's all about the data modeling, okay? While performing the data modeling in Tableau it is possible to perform data modeling. Okay, the data modeling is nothing but designing the schemas. So at the time of schema design, it is very, very important. So everything in Tableau as I have to begin with connecting to the data. At the time of creating the data functions, it is always important to retrieve the correct data. So how to retrieve the correct data means, okay, by building the correct schema, like the star schema or snowflake schema. So the star or snowflake schema is nothing but just connecting the dimensions and the measures. So in the initial phase of the project development, it is very, very important.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so let me go ahead. So similarly, similarly like the types of dimensions, there are the types of measures also. So basically, the measures are divided into 3 types. Okay, so basically, what is a measure? Measure is a number, right? On the measures, we frequently apply one type of functions known as group functions or the aggregate functions. Okay, they are nothing but sum, average, min, max. Okay, count like that. So measures are divided into three types. The three types of measures are: number one, additive measure; next, number two, semi-additive, and next, number three, non-additive. Okay. The measures are divided into three types. The three types of measures are additive measure, semi-additive measure, and the non-additive measure. So what is an additive measure means? Okay, what is an additive measure means? If the measure is supporting all the aggregations, it means sum, min, max, and most importantly, after supporting all the aggregations, if it is giving us the meaningful outputs, okay, if it is giving us the meaningful outputs, then such a kind of measure is known as the additive measure. Okay, if the measure is supporting all the aggregations and after applying the aggregations, if it is giving us the meaningful outputs with all the dimensions available, then such a kind of measure is known as additive measure. So let me explain with an example. Let's say, for example, I am taking department, year, and sales. Department, year, and sales. So here I am having two dimensions, okay, department and year, and one measure. So what will measure? Sales. So on sales, if I apply sum, what it is going to give us? Sum of sales. So it's nothing but the total sales. So if you take the department wise total sales, okay, if you take the department wise total sales, is it meaningful or not? Yes, department wise total sales is meaningful. And if you apply average, it is going to give us what? Average sales. So if you analyze department wise average sales, yes, it is also meaningful. Similarly, if you apply min or max, it is going to give us the department wise minimum sale and the department wise maximum sale. So after applying the aggregation, we compare with the list of dimensions available here. The sales is giving us the meaningful output. So if the measure is supporting all the aggregations and most importantly, if it is giving us the meaningful outputs, then such a kind of measure is known as the additive measure. Next, what about the semi-additive? If the measure is supporting only few of the aggregations, okay, but not all, and if it is giving the meaningful outputs only with the few of the dimensions, then such a kind of measure is known as the semi-additive. So let's say, for example, I am taking branch, I am taking month, I am taking balance. Basically, here I am taking one bank information. Okay, here I am taking one bank information. So here I am having, sorry, instead of month, let me take customer. Let me take customer. So here I am having two dimensions. One is branch, next the customer, and next the balance. So now here on the balance, if I apply max or min, it is going to give us what? The minimum balance and the maximum balance. So we compare with the customer. So customer wise minimum balance and customer wise maximum balance. So it is going to give us what? The meaningful information. Let's say you are maintaining your bank account, let's say since 10 years, and if I apply minimum balance means what? In this 10 years, okay, we will come to know what is the minimum balance we have had in our account. And similarly, if I apply max, we could come to know, okay, what is the maximum balance we have had in our account. Similarly, the branch wise also we can able to get. But on the balance, if I apply sum of balance means what? It is going to add all the transactions, right? So right from the first day of my opening of the account till the current date, it is going to add all the transactions in my account. So even though it is going to give us one consolidated balance value, so if you compare with the customer, okay, it is going to give us the meaningless output. If you add all the transactions, so we cannot perform any analysis on that. So now here on the balance, if you apply max or min, it is going to give us the meaningful outputs. Whereas if you apply sum, it won't give us any meaningful outputs. So if the measure is supporting only few of the aggregations, okay, and if it is giving us the meaningful output, then such a kind of measure is known as the semi-additive measure. And next, number 3, non-additive. What about the non-additive measure? So if the measure is not supporting any aggregations, okay, to give the meaningful outputs, then such a kind of measure is known as the non-additive measure. So here, what are the examples? All the irrational values like 1 by 10,000 or 1 by some value like this, and the decimal values like 0.0001, okay, and the percentage values, they comes under the non-additive. Okay, and the percentage values, it comes under the non-additive. So let's try to identify the different types of measures we are having here. So we go to the measures. Here we are seeing something called as customer ID. So what about customer ID? So what the measure contains? Foreign key. Right? So customer ID. ID is what? Key. So it's a foreign key. And discount. What about discount? Okay, what about discount? Let me show you the data. So how to see the data? Just click on view data. So if you drag it to right here, under the discount here, what type of data we're having? Under the discount here, we're having the percentage data. So always the percentage values comes under what? Non-additive. Always the percentage values comes under the non-additive. Next, order ID. What about order ID? Order ID is also a foreign key. Next, about order quantity. What about order quantity? So let's try to evaluate. On the order quantity, apply sum, it is going to give us what? The total order quantity. So the region wise total order quantity, is it meaningful or not? Yes. And if we take average, so the region wise average order quantity, yes, it is meaningful. And if we take minimum or maximum, it is going to give us region wise minimum order quantity or maximum order quantity, even it is also meaningful. So this order quantity is giving us the meaningful outputs. Okay, the meaningful outputs with the list of all the dimensions available. So order quantity comes under the additive measure. Next, if you see the product based margin, once you check the data, we go to the product based margin. So here, what type of data here we are having? On the product based margin, we are having the percentage value. So always the percentage values comes under the non-additive. And one shortcut here is, in the measures, always the currency indicator fields comes under additive. Okay, in measures, one shortcut is always the currency indicator fields comes under additive. If you take sales or profit or shipping cost or unit price, so sales means what? One value, right? So we'll indicate the sales value with an indicator like sales in the form of either INR or USD or GBP. Similarly, if we take profit, we will indicate the profit with a currency indicator. Okay, and similarly cost. So cost means what? Cost, it should contain some currency indicator, and similarly unit price. So price also contains what? Some currency indicator. So always the currency indicator fields comes under the additive measures. And finally, latitude and longitude. Here we are seeing, the latitude within brackets we are seeing generated, and the longitude in brackets we are seeing generated. It means Tableau is automatically generating these two fields. So when Tableau will automatically generate this latitude and longitude. So when Tableau will generate this latitude and longitudes means if our data source contains the geographic dimensions. So if you see here our data source is having what? The geographic dimensions like country, state, and city. So if our data source contains the geographic dimensions, if our data source contains the geographic dimensions, then Tableau will automatically generate what? Latitude and longitude. So the latitude and longitude will differ from one location to the other location. So this latitude and the longitude, it comes under the non-additive measures. Okay, so it's all about the measures. So finally in the data warehouse, Finally, in the data warehouse, the arrangement of these dimensions and the measures is known as a schema. In the data warehouse, the arrangement of the dimensions and the measures is known as a schema. So the schema can be built with one kind of thing known as dimensional modeling. Okay, so how we can able to build the schema in the data warehouse with the help of dimensional modeling. So basically, we used to have two types of data modeling at the database level. One is the ER modeling. So ER modeling is for the OLTP systems, and next number two, dimensional modeling. The dimensional modeling is for the OLAP systems. So in the dimensional modeling, we frequently build, okay, or in the dimensional modeling, we are having three types of schema. The three types of schemas are star schema, snowflake schema, and starflake schema. Okay. So the three types of schemas are star schema, snowflake schema, and the starflake schema. So these three are the different schemas which are available in the dimensional modeling. So in the real time, we frequently use star and snowflake. Okay, the starflake is also known as the mixed schema. Okay, it is a combination of both the star and snowflake. Starflake is a combination of both the star and snowflake. Okay, and it is also known as the galaxy schema. So let me discuss about the star schema. Okay, what about the star schema? In star schema, we used to have one centralized fact table. So fact table means it's nothing but the collection of facts, and dimension table means it's collection of the multiple dimensions. Okay. So we used to have one centralized fact table, and it is surrounded by the multiple dimensions. So DT1, DT2. DT3 and DT4. Okay, so you see here, okay, this kind of arrangement is known as a star schema. Okay, so if one dimension table, okay, is directly attached to the fact table, this kind of arrangement is known as the star schema. So basically, what is a star schema means? If all the dimension tables are directly attached to the fact. So in star schema, the fact is located at the center. If one dimension table is directly attached to the fact table, then such a kind of arrangement is known as the star schema. Then what about snowflake? Okay, what about snowflake? Snowflake is an extension to star waves. Okay, snowflake is an extension to star. So we still have one centralized fact table. Okay, we still have one centralized fact table. Okay, so here we still have one centralized fact table, so T. So the fact table will be surrounded by some dimensions DT1, DT2, DT3 and DT4, and here also we still have some other dimensions like DT5, DT6, DT7 and DT8. DT7 and DT8. Okay, so this kind of arrangement is known as snowflake schema. Okay, this kind of arrangement is known as the snowflake schema. Okay, so in the snowflake schema, all the dimension tables are not directly attached to the fact. In the snowflake schema, all the dimension tables are not directly attached to the fact. So there is a direct relationship between one dimension and the other dimension. The main difference between star and snowflake is in star schema, all the dimension tables are directly attached to the fact, and there is no direct connection between or direct relationship between one dimension and the other dimension. Whereas in the snowflake schema, there is a direct relationship between one dimension and the other dimension. So in Tableau, it is possible to build these two schemas, okay, star and the snowflake schemas. Then what about Starflake? If we combine both the star and snowflake, then it is known as stars. Okay, then it is known as Starflake. So how to combine both the star and snowflake? So how to combine both the star and snowflake means with the help of bridge dimension. Okay, by using the bridge dimension, we can able to combine both the star and snowflake. So which dimension will act as the bridge dimension? Okay, the conformal dimension. Always the conformal dimensions will act as the bridge dimension. With help of the conformal dimension, we can able to combine the star and snowflake. Okay, so it's all about the schemas in the data warehouse. So here one important interview question is, which schema is good in performance, star or snowflake? So the answer is always star schema gives very good performance. Okay, always star schema gives very good performance when compared with the snowflake schema. So why star schema gives very good performance? Because in the star schema we used to have the lesser number of tables. In star schema we used to have the lesser number of tables. So, and where we are having the schemas? In the data warehouse. In the data warehouse we frequently perform the select operation. So if we have the less number of tables, then obviously it will take less time to select our data because okay, it requires less number of conditions to execute in the select statement. So always the star schema gives the good performance because the lesser number of tables and the lesser number of conditions to execute when compared with the snowflake schema. So if you say star schema gives the good performance, the next immediate question would be, so which schema are you implementing in our latest project? So the best answer would be always go with the snowflake. Okay, always go with the snowflake. Because in the real life scenario, it is not, okay, every time it is not possible to arrange the client business in the form of, star. So better to say snowflake. So the answer would be, due to the complexity of my client's business, we are using snowflake schema. So if you say that you are using snowflake schema, the next question would be, is it possible to convert snowflake to star or not? Is it possible to convert snowflake to star or not? Yes, the answer is yes. It is possible to convert snowflake to star. So how to convert snowflake to star means just group these dimensions. Okay, just group these physical dimensions into one single dimension known as LD1. Okay, into one logical dimension. Okay, and group these physical dimensions into LD2, and just group these two dimensions into LD3. And similarly group the remaining two dimensions into LD4. So with the help of this, okay, logical dimension is nothing but just grouping with the help of select statement. Okay. Now we see here the fact table. and LD1, LD2, LD3, and LD4. It's nothing but what? It's nothing but the fact. It's nothing but the star schema only. But this kind of grouping is not recommended. Okay, but this type of grouping is not recommended because it will degrade the performance. Okay, so it is possible to convert snowflake to star, but it is not recommended as it will degrade the performance. And the next question would be the reverse question. Is it possible to convert star to snowflake or not? Yes, the answer is yes. Because snowflake is what? Snowflake is an extension to, okay, snowflake is an extension to what? Star. So till here, okay, till here, you see here, okay, till here it is equivalent to what? Till here it is equivalent to the star only, and to these dimensions, if you directly join some other dimensions, then star will become what? Snowflake. So it is possible to convert star to snowflake and even snowflake to star. But the conversion of snowflake to star is not recommended. Okay, so it's all about the basics of the data warehouse. Okay, so to work with any BI application, you need these basics. Without these basics, you cannot work properly in the real time. So it's all over me today's session. If you have any questions, please post your questions.